there's a number of responses. Is firstly to respond rather than to react. I think we really need to slow down and get clear on where we are actually at. Certainly be grateful for what we have, and to start maintaining a really good connection with ourselves, getting clear, listening to our heart, listening to our gut, and following our head in the right order, or as I say it, feel no, yes, no. So feel your heart, know in your gut, and let your brain follow with a yes or no answer. So the last thing you want to do right now is stress out and do something too quickly. The triple bottom line for the new post-virus world, as I call it, is do what is best for all, for others and for yourself. We're all in this together.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You will hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested.
Hi Freedom Fighters. How are you seeing the world? And how are you feeling about your world right now? What's different and very concerning about our current radical uncertainty is a combination of the speed with which change is happening and the fact that it's global. Every one of us is affected. It's not just another isolated incident that we can watch remotely on the TV. It's affecting us all instantaneously, and we don't really know what's happening, what will happen next, how long will it go on for, and we don't really know what to do about it. Understandably, some of you are feeling scared shitless. It feels like a complete, ever-changing and overwhelming shit show, and you don't know where to start or what to do. It feels like we've all been forced to hold our heads underwater with our eyes closed, and only those who can hold their breath long enough will survive. But we don't even know how long we need to hold our breath. And this uncertainty and constant cascading rapid change is fueling our fear. And the mainstream media just love to ignite it with their 24/7 scaremongering. But fear, that's F-E-A-R, is often defined as false evidence appearing real. And the media have become experts at this with their distorted, negative 24/7 views. And this results in two fear, that's F-E-A-R, choices. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. We need to start by facing our fears, not ignoring or suppressing them. To face our fears, it's useful to start by working out where we are and where we need to get to on the axis of uncertainty, as described by Matt D'Avella. So imagine two lines, a horizontal and a vertical line intersecting in the middle to create a cross that separates four quadrants. On the horizontal spectrum line, you can be anywhere from underprepared at one extreme on the far left, through to prepared in the middle, to overprepared on the very far right. Emotionally, on the vertical fear scale, you may be anywhere from being in a blind panic at the top to completely calm at the bottom. This creates four uncertainty state quadrants: panicking and unprepared in the top left, underprepared and calm in the bottom left, panicked and overprepared in the top right, and overprepared and calm in the bottom right. Being prepared, but not overprepared, as well as calm, is the best position to be in. On our axis of uncertainty, this is in the bottom right quadrant in the zone close to the middle of the horizontal prepared axis and close to the calm bottom of the vertical axis. So where are you now? Many start in the panicked underprepared stage, like a rabbit in the headlights. They're stunned and dazed and just can't do anything. A very bad place to be. Then there are those who just don't believe what's happening and aren't taking it seriously. I actually started there. They're the Rastafarian ostriches who just keep putting their head in the sand, believing it'll just all go away if they wait long enough. Again, a very scary place to be. Worse still, though, are the ill-informed panic merchants who drown themselves in the mass media-fueled fear hysteria and create a self-fulfilling, stamp-beating herd because they think the world's going to end and they just end up doing stupid shit, like hoarding new toilet paper. But the sweet spot is for those who plan for the worst and expect the best. They focus on controlling the controllables and have loose contingencies and mental and monetary buffers to accommodate and respond to any unknown unknowns. So the plan is to move you into the sweet spot of being calm and prepared. But first we need to confront our fears head on if we're going to overcome them. Just doing something hoping it will eliminate your fears, or more likely ignoring them, isn't going to help because you won't be in the right mental and emotional state to make good decisions. So here's a great approach to address your fears and move through them based on the ancient Stoicism philosophy that I heard from Tim Ferriss of the 4-Hour Workweek fame. This is about training yourself to separate what you can control from what you can't control, and then doing exercises to focus exclusively on what you can control to decrease your level of emotional reactivity, to allow calm logic, reason, and your innate intuition to help you make quicker and better decisions. This can be a decision-making superpower in your uncertainty toolkit. It's based on the premeditation of evil Stoic exercise. In simple terms, this is visualizing the worst-case scenario in absolute detail that you actually fear. And they're those that are preventing you from taking action like a rabbit in the headlights, or from taking the wrong action like the stampeding herd of hystericals. This exercise helps you to drown out your incessant monkey mind of stinking thinking and move to considered doing by writing down and capturing your dark thoughts on paper in an exercise that Ferriss calls fear setting as opposed to goal setting. This exercise consists of 3 simple pages. The first page is headed with the question, what if I ... This is whatever you fear, whatever's causing you anxiety, whatever you're putting off or avoiding. This may be that you're fearful that the forced pandemic shutdown is going to send you broke and you'll lose everything. So what if I lose my job or my business and my current source of income? You then divide the page into 3 columns: define, prevent, and repair. In the first define column, you're writing down all the worst things that you imagine happening if your fear eventuates. Just scribble them all down. So you might be scared that you'll lose your home or you can't provide for your family. Then you go to the middle prevent column and you write down the answer to, what could I do to prevent these defined what-if fears from happening, or at the very least, decrease the likelihood, even if it's just a little bit. So if you're anxious that your regular income is going to dry up and you're fearful this result in losing your home because you can't pay the mortgage or the rent, you can prevent this by employing our Keep Calm approach. That's CALM. Control your costs, activate and access savings, leverage other people's money, and manage your spend. For example, you can cut and control your costs now using the 5 R's of removing nice-to-have costs, reverting your home loan from principal and interest to interest only, or refixing your loan to a lower rate to slice repayments by anywhere up to 30 to 35%, renegotiating reductions in your big costs for loans, insurances and school fees, etc., refinancing and restructuring your finances to put an extra $300 to $1,200 a month back in your pocket, or as a last resort, trigger a hardship repayment holiday on your loans, insurances, utility bills and tax commitments. I suggest that you all do the first four anyway, regardless of your current situation. In addition, you can access savings reserves through redraw, rainy day reserves, reductions in tax, accessing retirement super funds, and activating an automatic saver system to build a survival war chest. Leveraging other people's money through the government stimulus initiatives and income support programs can also give you a lifeline. Then we go to the third repair column. So if the worst case happened, what can you do to repair the damage, even just a little bit? Or who could you ask for help? Ask yourself, has anyone else in the history of time been in this position and figured this out? Now, you know the answer is going to be yes, so just Google them and talk to them. The second page is simple, and you title it Benefits. What might be the benefits of an attempt or partial success? Note, we're playing up the fears and being very conservative about the upside here. So if you attempt whatever you are considering, might you reduce anxiety, buy time, build confidence, develop skills, either emotionally, financially or otherwise? What might be the benefits of kicking points instead of goals if it's going to keep you playing the game? Page 3 is then headed The Cost of Inaction. This gets you to look at the emotional, physical, financial and other costs if you don't take considered action. And look at it in 3 time frame columns, in 6 months, 1 year and 3 years, as realistic foreseeable time frames. This page is likely to be the most important, so don't skip it. As humans, we're very good at looking at what might go wrong if we try something new. But we don't often consider is the atrocious cost of doing nothing, not changing anything. So ask yourself, if I avoid this action or decision and other actions and decisions like it, what might my life look like in 6 months, 12 months and 3 years' time? And get really detailed. This can often paint a terrifying picture. You lose your home, you're living on the streets, your marriage and relationships have failed or are failing. This helps you to see that inaction is no longer an option for you, and it motivates you to move forward and start doing, rather than stagnating in your head of stinking thinking. In my own personal case, it was a simplified version of this fear-setting exercise, alongside goal-setting and creating my ideal lifestyle vision, when I was burnt out, broken and broke 20 years ago, that's motivated and helped my wife Sonia to move from being on the bones of our bums to enjoying our privileged lifestyle today. We've also realised that you often need to break it to make it, and our current times create the perfect storm of opportunity for this. And while tackling your fears doing this fear-setting work, remember the old Stoic adages that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. For more on this, have a read of the book The Obstacle is the Way, The Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumphs by Ryan Holiday, if you want to enjoy more Stoic wisdom. Ultimately, we get to choose who we want to be and how we respond. And as humans, we're amazingly resilient and incredibly adaptable. We've survived and gone on to thrive through every single life-threatening crisis the world has ever thrown at us. And the pandemic will just be another, just as there will be more to come in the future. So we can sit in the fear zone feeling sorry for ourselves, or we can progress through the learning zone to the growth zone. And today's episode aims to start giving you the approach and information you need to make that transition. But an important question remains: how can you make quick and good decisions in times of radical uncertainty when you have no history to base it on? The brave new world that we have all been suddenly shocked into has no precedent. The economic models of the past don't make any sense, as they're all based on the false assumption that we all completely rational, logical decision makers based on probability. where it's assumed we're all looking to optimise and maximise our position based on the known parts of the puzzle. But the reality is, we're not dealing with a known puzzle or even a maze, but unknown, unfolding mysteries. And most of us don't think or act entirely rationally, as our emotions kick in and throws our maximiser logic completely out the door. That old, hysterical monkey brain that never shuts up, keeps us scared and drowns out our judgment. For the first time ever, the entire world has been shut down overnight. Our previous way of thinking and problem solving isn't adequate to cope with the complexity and constant dynamic change we're all trying to cope with. In the absence of any reliable information, where we're still forced to make quick, big and important decisions on the run, how can we do it? By falling back on our age-old inbuilt intuition that has been there with us for millennia. Now, this flies in the face of our current scientific approach to the world, where everything needs to be quantified and a mathematical model and probability applied to it. Unfortunately, our intuition has been downgraded, undermined and dispelled of its importance. Intuition can't be explained, and neither should we have to justify it. It's baked into our evolutionary DNA. Our subconscious mind is working 100,000 times faster than our conscious rational mind, and our invisible, highly attuned mental, physical and spiritual awareness is reading situations without us even knowing it. We just needed to rediscover what has always been there but has been forgotten and ignored for the last few centuries. And we need to start reconnecting with it. Move over brain. Here comes the resurgence of our heart, our gut and our spirit. It's largely our adaptive, instinctive intuition that's allowed the human race to survive and thrive the millennia through repeated life-threatening crisis shock situations that are major, new, unfamiliar and unusual, that require rapid decisions without sufficient information or time to prepare, and have the potential to result in major consequences. Is this describing life as we know it? Does this ring a bell? So in these turbulent, unheard of times, let's dust off our intuition, listen to it, and trust ourselves to make good decisions without having to be buried in stats, evidence, and information that's largely irrelevant, at best distracting, and at worst actually creating so much noise that it's paralysing us into inaction, or worse still, making bad decisions based on unhelpful and misleading data. And the best person to help us do all of this is to reconnect with Craigh Wilson, who inspired us all on episode 78 of Get Invested. So have another listen if you want to find out more about his amazing story and his talents. Craigh is Australia's world-leading intuitive and a best-selling author of his book, Intuitive. It's a must-read in these times. Craigh's also a healer, a mentor and a global speaker. As a result of his unique intuitive talents, Craigh has had the pleasure of working with incredible individuals and helping amazing business owners, entrepreneurs and Fortune 500 companies around the world to help them to tap into their tuition so they can make clear, fast and accurate decisions on demand. I can personally vouch for the positive impacts he's having on my decision-making skills and its outcomes. So in today's very informative and enlightening discussion, you'll hear Craigh's wisdom on the very positive future that lies ahead for us all, as he answers all of your burning questions to give you the information and the approaches to not only survive, but thrive in these radically uncertain times. So please enjoy Craigh Wilson. Hi, freedom fighters. Now, in these dynamic, radically uncertain times of rapid change where no one really knows what's going on or how to respond, how do we make good decisions? What do we do? What don't we do? How are we going to survive and thrive? What and where are the opportunities in the madness, and how can we capitalise on them? How can you make clear, fast and accurate decisions on demand? Because the quality of our individual and collective decisions which will shape the quality of our future in the times ahead. Now, to answer these pressing questions, I felt it really opportune to get intuitive Craigh Wilson back on Get Invested, given his world-leading status in these areas, as there's never been a greater time or a bigger need for his skills and his way of looking at the world to help us navigate the uncharted waters that we face. So welcome back, and let's get invested, Craigh.
Great to be back with you, Bushy, and the Freedom Fighters.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's certain to say that we are living in very interesting times. But since we last spoke, and it's been about 12 months now since we got together on Get Invested, what's been happening in your world, and where's that leading you to, buddy?
Yes, look, a lot has happened since we've spoken. I suppose some of the biggest areas where we've changed is that we now work with business leaders to connect them to pure consciousness. So what does that mean in practical terms? It means that we connect business leaders to get them from fear to flow. So that's probably been the biggest change. So what that means is it's about getting into peak performance. It's having clarity and confidence, peak performance, and staying in a flow state. So a lot of things have happened as we help entrepreneurs now to some of the world's largest companies realize their full potential through the science of intuition, and science is now catching up. As I was speaking with Professor David Elias, we're now working with the University of Sydney, which is, the equivalent of Harvard in many cases in Australia, in the area of decision making and intuition, which is just very humbling. What's happened, Bushy, is that we've really doubled down on the results side of decisions and decisiveness. It's no longer just a way of thinking or a feeling. It's about values, and it's aligning your core values, or as Professor Elias would say, what he's highly impressed with is it's the alignment of values with the business of ethics and values with self-awareness, with business pipeline. So that's what he's really impressed about. So what we're doing now is we've created, with an investment banker, a global chairman of an investment bank who you've met, now a global investment firm, partnering with entrepreneurs to some of the world's largest and most exciting companies in the area of social impact. So I just want to make it clear, we're not an investment bank. We're very far from that. And what we do, which is different, is that we provide a structured decision-making process to commercialize and fund to get equity and raise equity for some of the world's leading social impact companies. And we do that by partnering with them through their decision-making process, and we invest with them over the long term. Yep. So what we're looking for is partnership in the area of disruptive technology, positive disruptive technology, rebuilding distressed communities with low-cost housing in the United States, as I've shared with you. So we've got major property deals happening at the moment over there, in the middle of all of what's going on. Yeah. And the circular economy in the areas of health, the planet, and negative carbon building products. So, and then of course we're doing more and more work with you, Bushy, and your team at Know How Property Finance in getting investors self-health and wealth right in the first order, and there's never been a time more importantly than that. And two other points to conclude, or three, is that we're now being asked to work in the education sector with top Australian schools, the state and federal government, business associations, etc., in providing a fear to flow program, which we've had for a very long time, is getting people out of high stress and anxiety, and even school children and students out of frustration into just surviving, to moving them into an area of clarity and confidence and peak performance and even flow. So we've been very busy, and it seems like now more than ever people are having a really good look at me and my team and our business partners, including yourself, as we've now expanded the operations to Asia, Hong Kong, the US, working with deep global impact organisations and companies.
No, that's absolutely brilliant, mate. And I'm going to drill into discussion around how to move from fear to flow, given your expertise in that arena, and given that that's very much where a lot of Australia is currently sitting squarely in that fear zone. But before we do that, mate, given the amount of anxiety that we're sort of sensing in everything we pick up through the mainstream media. What do you think is the reality of the responses to COVID-19 on our current situation as you see it?
Well, I think firstly, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we are in warlike conditions. I think we shouldn't make any mistake of that. And to be even more formal, I think we are pretty much under a state of martial law, even though it hasn't been called that yet. The Army Reserve is on standby here and in the United States and other parts around the world. Now, I don't say that to be alarmist, but, you know, we're really not meant to be moving too far from our homes. So what I'm trying to say, it's pretty clear that 99% of people on the planet are not in a real good place right now. And in the fear to float pendulum, and that's why, you know, you asked me to come on at short notice, is that the outside environment is one of high stress and anxiety. I mean, that's pretty clear. The responses, there's a number of responses, is firstly to respond rather than to react. I think we really need to slow down and get clear on where we are actually at. Certainly be grateful for what we have, and to start maintaining a really good connection with ourselves, getting clear, listening to our heart, listening to our gut, and following our head in the right order, or as I say it, feel no, yes, no. So feel your heart, no in your gut, and let your brain follow with a yes or no answer. So the last thing you want to do right now is stress out and do something too quickly. The triple bottom line for the new post-virus world, as I call it, is do what is best for all, for others, and for yourself. We're all in this together. I, like you and Sonia, and through our partnership and other partners, feel that this is just a reset, and it's an extraordinary one. It's an L-shaped recession.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that. But, you know, that's the way you and I and our partners have been living for over a decade, probably 2 decades. So I think the world has really now got to think about not just individuals, investors and businesses, not just doing what's good for them and their nuclear family, but thinking about what's best for everybody. So it's a real opportunity to evolve. To go into what to do, we need to get out of fear and anxiety and frustration and look at what we need to do to get to ourselves into a place of clarity, priority and high performance. And for some people, that's going to be flows. So for those that are ready, emotionally ready, most importantly, mentally ready, and have got the cash flow or, you know, willing to do what they need to do to survive, to get through this, and they're the ones that are going to be the best place to step out. You know, first in, first out, last in, last out.
Yeah, no, well said. So, and I'm sort of keen to drill into your thoughts around the old
and then what
recession.
Not to do, really, too.
Yes, and we'll sort of come into that. But how do you see things rolling out in the short to medium term in terms of the impacts on economy, business, the markets, and our lifestyles, mate?
Yes. Very good question. So, look, I think the first thing is that some of you would know through the community, and I know you would, Bushy, through the Dent community, David Sherlaw, who works with Tim Dwyer and is an economic commentator from London. And I'm involved with them through the Bob School, the business of a brand. And he said recently on a call I was on, I believe last week, and I agree with this, at a macroeconomic level, we're sort of due for a recession or depression every 33 years.
Yeah.
So our last major crash was in 1987. And it's interesting because he was speaking to some real estate investors, I believe, in the UK, and looked at his watch and said, I think we're about 1 or 2 days overdue for a crash. And that's when things happen.
Wow.
I think the biggest thing is to recognise in that links with our fear to flow model, which is getting a lot of the airplay and press at this point, is that the first phase of this model is that it's probably going to be a 12 to 18 month at this stage, to be prepared for 12 to 18 months. So even if all the taps went back on, we have a cure to the virus, which I believe will be found. I don't think it'll take too long. if it already hasn't been created.
Yeah.
You will find that markets will repair quickly, but there'll be an impact. So 9 months is the fear phase, and then beyond that 9 months is the growth phase. So depending where you're at, I suppose what we're saying to the freedom fighters is if you can get out of high stress and anxiety and frustration and survival, you can use the next 9 months to sort of reconsolidate, work out whether you need to pivot or double down in your existing business, and then get some clarity and confidence so that you can get ahead of the market. I think that's one big thing.
Yeah.
He further said that as part of that cycle that we'll see growth starting from 2021 to 2025, and then a boom period from 2026 to 2030. So if you can do your best not to take what's happened personally and really focus on what your clients' needs are right now, and you can get yourself through this phase, then there are extraordinary opportunities on the other side, and right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's I'll dig into those with you shortly. But can we dig in a little bit to the fear to flow? Framework that you developed, because it's very unique, and I think in the context of where, and there's a lot of people sitting very heavily in fear as we speak.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, are you able to sort of give them a little bit of solace and perhaps a little bit of direction on some of the things they can start to think and do that will take advantage of your approach to swing them from one extreme to the other?
Well, firstly, like you, Bushy, this is probably my third, and some of you out there, this is my third recession depression. It was compounded worse by me because I was an entrepreneur and, sort of changed careers a couple of times. I created the business 20 years ago. I went through the big IT burst of 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
So I've been through a lot personally. And I'd suffered with health issues. I've had to let my home go, refinance. So everything that people are going through now, I went through on my own, it wasn't easy. So I really feel for anyone who is in fear right now for themselves and their family. Obviously, the virus is a concern, but we don't want the cure to be worse than the solution. So the solution to be worse than the virus. The virus this version will pass. I think also on that there's a lot of data. We don't have a clear data set. If you look to the United States, the White House overnight has said that the data that's being collected and compared against the other countries is not as accurate as they thought, and is not including asymptomatic symptoms.
Yeah.
So, as we've said, you have said, and I agree, the media has its own interests. Let's our friends in the media. I'm not going to bash anyone, but they are focusing on the stress and anxiety rather than the solution. So, I don't think things are as bad as they're saying. It is a deadly disease, surely, and maybe highly contagious, but there are people die more from car accidents and things every day, but the government has to do what it has to do. It's fair enough. Yep. So where I'm closing off on that, it's completely normal to be highly stressed and have anxiety right now because of the environment. I feel that on a macroeconomic level that the risk and equity markets are starting to find a price now. Yep. Up until probably a week ago, you had the United States government put $3.2 trillion into the US, and obviously impacts the world economy. We are working on large equity deals and debt and equity pretty much on a daily basis internationally and out of the United States. We're finding the markets are sort of getting close to pricing risk again.
Yep.
So hopefully things have bottomed out. Maybe they'll go down a bit more, but there is I'd want to address the liquidity in the marketplace as well.
Yes.
What I would like people to know and investors to know is that there's much, much more liquidity and money in the marketplace, and this is what really spurred Bushy to getting me on the call. There's more liquidity and cash in the system than 2008.
Yeah.
So 2000 and 2001, there was a lot more money. The L-shaped recession, things have moved so fast based on this pandemic of fear there are a lot of funds and private family offices, like really large ones, that have got a lot of money invested or on the sidelines right now.
Yep.
In Australia, those monies are allocated for investments by 30 June and then beyond that. So I think that's the biggest point I want to put out there, is that there is a lot of cash in the system that is either in or sitting on the sidelines, because we are not looking at market fundamentals. We are looking at fear, and fear is normal, but it's not successful.
Yeah, but extremely well said there, mate. No, very well said. So in the context of that sort of the radical uncertainty that's unfolding, and I think a lot of that radical uncertainty is around governments and others' responses to the virus, not the virus itself. It's actually the rapidity of that response that's sort of snowballing the exercise. For someone who's sitting at home at the moment and trying to get their head around working from home, how can they make good decisions in these times, mate?
Well, I think firstly, let's get on the front foot, is start looking after your immune system. And if you can exercise. If you can get some vitamin D, get some vitamin D. Look at getting some vitamin C. Is firstly, don't get sick physically or be in a sick mindset or emotionally upset.
Yeah.
Talk to your allied health professional, your doctor, your naturopath, but what I can tell you is I meditate. I'm walking 8 kilometres, 5 days a week. I'm having zinc, lots of water, get some sunshine. I'm barefoot, and it's working. And, that's really important is, what's even more straightforward is getting yourself out of frustration by having a daily routine. So having a morning ritual, an evening ritual, and how you manage yourself during the day, because you need to have a format, especially if you're not used to working from home.
Yep.
You need to have a routine in how you set your day up, and that while you're in certain areas of the house, you might want to have zones. So, I have an office zone, I'm upstairs, downstairs. So I have certain areas where I work and certain areas where I relax.
Yep.
And certain areas where I socialise. So even in a small place, there's a lot you can do.
Yep.
And the thing really is to get yourself out of frustration into a place of clarity and confidence. Is try and be honest with where you're at and your situation, your cash position, et cetera, things will improve. But I think you've got to see this as an opportunity that, the earlier you sort of, get off your backside and sort dust yourself off, the quicker you're going to get out of this situation personally and professionally. And the other thing too, Bushy, is there's a lot of opportunity. For me personally, I've never been busier. So that's great. And there's a lot of deals, opportunities out there that we're closing. They are a little more complicated because there's so many different factors going on, but there are people doing really well, and you can do well. The other bit I would say on that is that if you look at a market, and I've shared this recently through my groups of social media, and I think pretty sure you saw it, is that there's 100% of a market, and in 100% of a marketplace, everyone, there's 25%, which is the bottom end, and that 25% usually washes out in these times.
Yeah.
And that's because they don't have cash, or they're badly run, not organised, or they're just bad operators.
Yeah.
So that is going to happen, and that's happening.
Yeah.
You've then got a middle 50, so they're the people who are doing business as usual. They're reasonably good at what they do, some good, not so good operators. And then you've got the top 25%, and those people are the best at what they do in the industry. What you want to be aware of, if you're just sitting in the middle and you're afraid, or you're in that bottom 25%, if you allow fear to take over, then what you do is, for a job or raising or gaining income, is gone.
Yeah.
So that's just unfortunately going to be a reality. If you stay in that middle 50 and you don't improve your mindset or your emotional well-being and take action, then that middle 50 is going to drop down into the bottom 25%. So there's still a chance that you won't be around. And the most important thing is, if you can stay focused and double down and see this as an opportunity to grow and to pivot, but you don't want to pivot too early. You want to be clear on your business and work on what clients want. You've actually got an opportunity to pick up another 25% of market share and profit. So there's never been an opportunity, and I know you're like this as well. This is probably the biggest opportunity in transfer of wealth in our generation, in our life, actually, not just our generation.
Yeah, I actually love times like this because it really changes the rules essentially and gets rid of a lot of the old rules. And if we're nimble enough and we've war chested enough, if for those of us that have been putting in place contingencies and rainy day reserves as we move through, there's a wonderful world of opportunity that's going to open up for us if we've got our eyes open. For those that
it's right.
Yeah.
It's right now. Yeah.
It is right now. And those that, I guess the concern I have for a lot of Aussies is that there's been very much a live hand to mouth. And she'll be right, mate. We'll worry about investing and putting money into savings sometime later. And that's the Roosters are going to come home right now for those. And the good news, I think, for even those people on that bottom 25%, what I admire around what the governments and banks are doing, they're making statements that they will do whatever it takes to make sure that hardworking Aussies don't lose their homes. And the unfortunate fact is that the residential property market and property generally underpins most economies. And if we've got the government saying that they will do what they have to do to preserve and save that, then all we need to do is be able to get through a fairly challenging period in the short to medium term, but then take advantage of the situation that then unfolds from there, mate. So, yeah, that's awesome, mate.
I suppose just on that, from an economic point of view, if you've got an offline business, you need to get yourself online, and most businesses are offline. This could be the death and downfall of retail. So everything's going to happen a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's from an economy point of view. I've spoken about the markets, but I think from a personal point of view, there will be a vaccine. It probably already exists in all practicalities or close to it. And you will find the market in the US may very well rebound very quickly, but you want to get yourself into a place of clarity and confidence. And I would say, well, how do you do that? You know, as I said, a morning routine. What have you done in the past that's made you successful to get you back at your best? So think about what programs and patterns, whether it's yoga, exercise, a form of meditation. And if that doesn't work, then what other options can you look at? And if people are interested, we can send them the Fear to Flow model, so they can work out where they are at on a day and weekly basis. And we can also send them out a free 4-step process that will get them out of fear, anxiety, and out of frustration and then out of survival into a place of priority and clarity.
Yeah, brilliant. That's an excellent. Just having a visual framework that encapsulates that, and the awe-inspiring work you've done around creating something that's very complex into something that's immediately comprehensible is awesome. So for those listeners out there who would like to get their head around that, feel free to just jump on our website www.knowhowproperty.com.au and fill in the contact box there, and we'll email out to you ASAP. Mate, that's awesome. We've talked about what you should do. Let's flip the coin in terms of what you shouldn't do in these times. Any thoughts around that?
Well, firstly, you shouldn't panic. You are where you are. Don't react. We want to respond, not react.
Yeah.
A reaction is usually fear-based.
Yeah.
And our friends at the University of Sydney psychology department would tell you that when you're in fear, you can't be in flow, obviously. So the brain can only act in one capacity at one time. So you don't want to be making decisions when you're fearful. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of the just around that, I guess the other thought I had this, and I'd be interested in your views on this, Craig. One of the other worst things you can do is do nothing. Being an ostrich with your head in the sand at this time, it won't just go away. We will need to make changes and make conscious changes. What are your thoughts around that?
Absolutely. That, Australia, you don't want to be rearranging, deck chairs on the Titanic. We're truly part of the global economy now. So if you think we're in Australia and we're miles away from everything, that's just not the case anymore. So totally agree with what you said, Bushy. The second thing is don't pivot too early, is find out, what you're doing in your business. You may have to change it. So what you do need to do is reach out to your clients and to your micro niches. That's one thing I didn't mention earlier, Barry. Sorry, Barry is my business partner, Bushy.
That's right.
It's been a long time already. But we need to reach out to our micro niches and really understand what they need. But we need to get out of fear. That's the most important thing. And you shouldn't be making any important decisions coming from a fearful place. So give yourself a little bit of time, a few hours, sleep on it, a few days, but get yourself in the best possible place to make the best possible decision.
Yeah, the one thing that I have been mentioning, people and a number of other commentators saying the same, is be very careful about where you get your information at the moment. And certainly for me, limiting the amount of time I've got in the mainstream media trough. I'll spend 5 minutes just getting my head around, okay, what's changed, what are the likely impacts, and then flick it off and then get on to something else. What are your thoughts around that side of it, mate? And where are you getting your information at the moment?
I get my information from the media like everybody else, and alternate media. I've found, to be really frank, that some of the alternate media sources have been extremely accurate, and not just over 10 or 20 or 30 years, but recent times. I think you've got to be objective and see what the intention is of the media. The standard media, it's a lot easier to get an emotional reaction out of people coming from fear. I did some work with Dr. Edward de Bono. Some of you would know he invented Sigma 6 and with the thinking habits and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love him. He's a legend.
Yeah, he's a legend. And you've really got to be objective about where you get this information. He was the ambassador for thinking for the United Nations and for the European Union, and even there he really struggled, getting positive psychology across the line. So I think you've got to be objective and say, well, what's the intention of this media outlet? Is it to sell newspapers? The media is controlled by, certainly in the US, by 6 major outlets. So you've got to look at where they're coming from a political point of view.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to local news, but also, look, at the end of the day, there are forces of light and darkness in the world, and that's more about why, with yourself and other business partners, we are shifting the world to pure consciousness through a financial model, and for deep social impact and change. So you've got to really feel with your heart and your gut, saying, does that sound fair to me? What's the underlying reason? Look, all I would say is, yes, the virus is real. Yes, the economic reset is real, but there are other people out there who are very powerful that influence the media that have a real clear agenda. And some of those is to empower people and the middle class, and some of that is to destroy the middle class. It's pretty clear what's happened last time. This right now is the biggest opportunity, but if we sit on our hands and don't take action and say she'll be right, unfortunately, this could be the death of the middle class in the next 10 years for those people who are not willing to step up. So I know that sounds a little harsh, but it's pretty clear that our civil liberties under the acts of security and health hazards, which could even be a bioweapon, you make your own decisions on that.
Yeah.
Is that this is being put forward by several countries now. And I won't speak any more on that. I think it's really a time for you to connect with yourself and see what you believe and so what is the benefit of this media outlet telling me this? Is it to make me afraid? Is it for me to keep listening to this trauma bonding, or are they providing a real solution? So,
yeah, very well phrased there, mate, and really just encouraging the listeners to have a real think about why someone is saying something. I think that's absolutely key, and I think that on the opportunity side, Craig, and I'd be interested in your thoughts around this. What I think we're just experiencing now is, rather than a long, slow, painful death of some businesses that would have longer to die on the vine, that's been concentrated into a matter of months. And the real benefit for me is that I think business is going to become much more authentic and much more human. That all of us now, and you and I, Craig, have been operating our businesses this way for some years, in terms of operating remotely, operating from a home base, using technology as the connector. We now have no choice but to do that. But the positive side of that equation is that we're spending more time with our family. We're not sitting in the car for God knows how long, commuting to and from work. I know myself, and you mentioned the importance of a daily routine. Mine hasn't changed. I mean, I get up in the morning. Yeah. And let's share each other's routine, because it might make it a bit more tangible for people. So mine, the minute I open my eyes, I have a thank you, gratitude routine that I go through, and I just give thanks for anything that pops in my head, from my wife to my son to my dogs to the beautiful environment we live in, to you name it, for the sun and the sky. That immediately puts a smile on my face. Then we spend smile time with our 3 rescue Samoyed dogs, and I mean, there's no one can prevent having a smile on your face when you're looking at a smiling Samoyed. We then get up and we take the dogs for a walk, and this morning we went down to the local oval and we let the dogs run, and I got out the hockey stick, because I love hockey. Did a run around there, and then came back and I jumped on the piano for just 15 minutes. That's all I need, and I couldn't be in a more relaxed, happy state. And as you know, Craig, I think it's actually been scientifically proven that you're actually 51% smarter when you're in a good mood than when you're not. So,
even more, I'd say. But
yeah, well, yes, probably more so. So that's how I start my day. What about yourself, mate? What do your routines look like?
Look, I wake up at around 4:30 or 5. I mean, I've got a pretty heavy schedule these days, so I give myself a little bit of leeway. I wake up and I have a glass of water with lemon juice in it, which is really good for the body's pH. I then have an organic coffee, followed by, and I do my own gratitude routine. So I give thanks for being alive, to the Creator, to God in my world, to the house, and that I'm alive.
Yeah. And
I raise the energy of the home. I then do program, which is what the fear to flow, is to get myself and the world out of fear to flow. So I do that every morning, and you and members of your family now do that with me every week, which is great.
Yeah.
We then go for a walk, which is generally down the beach, and do about an 8K beach walk, and that's just extraordinary. And then I'll have a swim and maybe a little surf after that, or come home and do some weights. Yeah. Then shower, breakfast, laundry, set up my day, either work from home or go into the office, which is only 20 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
But that's up until 9:30. But that sets me up for the number one most important thing to do, and that is, what's the number one thing and the biggest driver to take the business forward. So if I achieve that one thing, Bushy, then my day is won.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. Absolutely love that, mate. Mate, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yep. that's my morning routine, and then I look at business observations and learnings, and after that, in the afternoon, team guidance and development, tasks, emails, response, personal appointments, and then I do my meditation round again at night, and then have something to eat, and either read a book or try not to get sucked too much into Netflix.
Mind you, Netflix is a welcome alternative to watching the Corona news at the moment.
That's true. It's a better addiction, it's a better connection than that. That's for sure.
Mate, I'm sort of very mindful of how busy you are and how much in demand you are at the moment, giving the world really wanting your input at all levels. But if I gave you a microphone that spoke to every one of the 7.7 billion people in the world currently, and I gave you a minute to talk, mate, what would you say to them?
I would say the most important thing right now is for you to connect with yourself. The relationship with yourself is to be vulnerable and find out who you are, what you need, and to be grateful that you're alive, and to do everything you can to live by your values and find your purpose in that, and ask for help and do what you need to get from fear to flow, so that you can be the best person on this planet that you can be, and being a living example of what's possible from a place of flow rather than a place of fear, anxiety, frustration, or survival.
Yeah, brilliantly said, mate. For those that, again, are inspired by what you can do to help them and who are very keen to do some work with you around the fantastic intuitive work you do in helping them make really good decisions, what's the best way for them to contact you, mate?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, which is obviously nice and simple and straightforward, Facebook or Twitter, and of course CraighWilson.com. That's CraighWilson. Or you can email me at info@CraighWilson.com. We've got some great stuff to get you started. So if you're not sure and you just want a bit of, I suppose, validation and a bit of support, then we've got plenty of stuff to get you started. Just send me an email and we'll get you the pendulum of fear to flow pendulum out. And for those of you that like to find out more and you're ready and you're in that survival place, or you're in clarity and confidence and you want to get into peak performance, we're happy to talk to you and support you in any way we can to get you into flow and more.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. I've personally seen just how inspirational and how effective and life-changing what you do is. So I'd certainly encourage listeners to reach out. And while it's been short and sharp today, given the complexity of the world we're in, I'm very keen to get you back on again to sort of dig into some of those deeper concepts that we touched on today. But in the meantime, mate, thanks again for being so generous of finding some time for us to help us to be able to really tackle the complexity of the world and look at it in a different way and start making better decisions to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. Thanks, Craig.
You're very welcome. And my last words, I would say, feel no, yes or no. Always go to your heart, go to your gut, and then your head. That's the way you were designed. Your heart was created, then your gut, then your brain. So follow it in that order. It'll never serve you wrong.
Fantastic, mate. Thanks again, Craig. Look forward to talking soon, mate.
Thanks, Bushy.
Cheers. Well, freedom fighters, how good was that? To get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes, just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.bushymartin.com.au/get-invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die